I believe the role of financing infrastructure around technology, whether it's financing data centers or financing the purchase of chips. As I said earlier, I think we're going to have markets investing in compute. We're going to have a futures market in compute. This is going to be the next revolution in finance, and it happens because of the strength of the United States capital markets, having the ability to finance these new technologies, so the United States and other places in the world can be leaders in the new technologies.
You know, you mentioned 50 years, so I am curious. I mean, have you ever seen anything quite like this, Larry? We've got what were the most profitable companies the world has ever seen,
yes,
making a choice to incinerate, wrong word, to decide not to have any free cash flow anymore, to not return capital to shareholders because they have to be part of this headlong race to make sure they are not left behind in the AI future. When I listen to myself say that, there's some worrisome aspects to that, are there not?
I mean, I've spoken to some of the leaders this week and last week in that sector. Their biggest worry right now, supply is not keeping up with demand. And you see that showing up in the value of the memory stocks. Okay, we have more demand for memory than we have supply. Obviously, they've been able to do big price increases. I don't know how sustainable that is. Maybe in 3-4 years we'll have enough supply. But, and so what we see as a big investor in data centers, the demand for compute is not slowing down, it's growing faster. The problem we have as a country, we're not investing fast enough. So I have an opposite.
So we're just not even, we need to do even more. I mean, $1 trillion CapEx spent from 6 companies, not enough.
I believe it's, well, not just there. We're not investing in our grids fast enough. We do not have enough adequate supply of power. And that's what is creating some of the issues at certain state levels, that they're worried about electricity prices for the consumer, which is a legitimate issue. But other states that have more power and more capability of delivering power, and delivering power that is not going to raise the price to the consumer, are going to be the big winners for growth.
Yeah.
So in the last quarter, we contracted close to 1 gigawatt of power in Pennsylvania. Okay. We're financing another big data center in another state. And in my conversation with every hyperscaler, demand is exceeding supply. And yes, you're right. These large companies used to be balance sheet light. And now their business has changed. And that's the role of the capital markets. And I promise you, these are going to be great investments for individuals. Right. If we could,
but you've got to know that the underlying business model ultimately that we get to is going to generate enough revenue and profit to be able to pay for all the data centers. They're not cheap.
Yeah, they're $50-60 billion for a 1 gigawatt. What I worry about, David, is not the demand side. I worry about, can all of society benefit from AI? Because right now, compute is so expensive. My questions to everybody in the hyperscaler business is not whether they have enough demand, is how quickly can they bring down the cost of compute. I'm not worried about BlackRock paying for the AI, and I think we've been a huge investor in it, and our systematic equity team has really benefited with the flows and the return. But I worry about the small and medium businesses. How are they going to be able to compete in this new AI technology world? So the biggest question I ask behind the scenes is, how quickly can we bring down the cost of compute? And okay, they tell me it's like a Moore's law, and how quickly they can develop faster and faster analytics to have faster compute. But unless we develop better technology and better systems in our grid to provide more power, more consistent power, I believe the United States must be power agnostic. We should not care if it comes from solar or hydrocarbons. We have to be there, but we don't have we need to be manufacturing the solar panels in the United States, building the battery storage. At least we can do the battery storage here.
We do.
So those are my worries. My worry about is not a bubble. My worry about we don't have the ability to build fast enough. And then I go watch China. China's building 100 gigawatts of nuclear. They're building close to 100 gigawatts of solar. Okay, they are getting set up for this AI revolution and the need for power. We're not doing this enough, and I actually get frightened when I see states saying we're going to do a moratorium. That's not the answer. The answer is how do we deliver more power quickly? Why don't we all start focusing on how do we deliver more power so we don't raise electricity prices, but we can be the center of the AI revolution.
Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang vehemently refuted a study that suggested his next flagship product line was faltering while speaking on the fringes of a developer conference in Tokyo. Production of Vera Rubin has already begun. Huang told reporters that enormous volumes of production were on the way, brushing off worries about delays and a semi-analysis article that suggested a specialized circuit board problem might cause the next-generation AI server rack to be delayed until 2028. The term giant alone is important. The CEO is using a product cycle that Wall Street has already started pricing into future figures to establish his credibility. Blackwell has already set an exceptional standard. Data center alone contributed $75.246 billion to Nvidia's Q1 FY 2027 sales of $81.615 billion, up 85.2% year over year, while networking revenue increased 199% YOY. Free cash flow for the quarter was $48.554 billion, while the non-GAAP gross margin was 75.0%. According to Huang, the build-out of AI factories, the largest infrastructure expansion in human history, is accelerating at extraordinary speed. He further stated that, "We have more orders today than we did at the last time I spoke about orders at GTC, and that Nvidia is going to keep our supply chain quite busy for many more years coming." Nvidia's optimism can be explained by supply obligations. The company is projecting $91.0 billion in Q2 revenue, which does not include any China data center compute sales and has $119.0 billion committed to supply-related obligations. After U.S. officials authorized about 10 Chinese companies to purchase the chips, H200 shipments to China and Hong Kong are said to have started, although delivery have been small thus far. A more optimistic Wall Street interpretation this morning clashed with the delay narrative that emerged in early July. In comparison to Blackwell, Morgan Stanley increased its Vera Rubin rack system price projection to almost $49 billion per gigawatt, suggesting significantly higher customer spending per deployment. Huang stated that Vera Rubin will extend that leadership even further, on cost per token, in Nvidia's fiscal Q4 remarks. The distinction is important. If the platform reduces the cost of operating AI models at scale, clients may pay more upfront for Rubin systems. The mix change raises Nvidia's average selling price base going into fiscal 2028 if pricing power holds and volumes are genuinely giant. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, a manufacturing partner, is indicating similarly strong demand. In order to alleviate CoWoS constraints, TSMC is constructing 3 new advanced packaging facilities in Chiayi Science Park Phase 2. June, revenue increased 67.9% YOY to NT 442.68 billion. With a trailing PE of 32x and a forward PE of 24x, Nvidia is currently trading at $211.54. With 48 buy and 10 strong buy ratings compared to just 2 holds, the consensus analyst goal is $301.62. With a 73% chance that Nvidia will end at 216s in July and only a 31.5% chance that it will close at $220 or above, prediction markets are more cautious. Current forward projections probably underestimate FY 2028 earnings power if Huang's giant volumes show up on Rubin at Morgan Stanley's higher ASPs. According to Bloomberg, Huang made the comments to reporters outside the Tokyo developer event. He dismissed the semi-analysis results with a single word before going into detail on manufacturing volumes. Due to semi-analysis's reputation for thorough Nvidia supply chain analysis, the delay report was noteworthy enough to prompt the CEO to respond directly. The specific technological issue raised is the production of a circuit board that connects electronic modules inside an AI server rack. This illustrates the kind of packaging complexity that has historically been a hurdle for next-generation accelerator systems. The Tokyo location wasn't a coincidence. According to Bloomberg, SoftBank Group separately announced a $5.4 billion deal to purchase ABB Litibian's robotics division, while Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi of Japan launched an extraordinary $2.3 trillion expenditure plan to encourage private sector investment in domestic AI. Major participants in the robotics and factory automation area include Fanuc Corp., Yaskawa Electric Corp., Kawasaki Heavy Industries, and Toyota Motor Corp. The country's declining population has long put pressure on firms to embrace these technologies more quickly. Japan is a strategically significant market for Nvidia, whose physical AI and robotics technologies are becoming more and more vital to its appeal outside of the data center. Huang also discussed the status of Nvidia's exports of H200 chips to China, a matter that has attracted a lot of interest from investors since Washington loosened export regulations. According to Bloomberg, President Donald Trump certified the H200 for export in December, a significant loosening of regulations intended to restrict Beijing's access to cutting-edge AI gear. The H200 was the most potent AI accelerator available until Blackwell architecture processors were introduced in late 2024, and its accessibility to Chinese consumers has significant financial ramifications for Nvidia. Huang said the ramp has only started, even though Washington has given the go-ahead. He told reporters, "We haven't really started much shipment yet," according to Bloomberg. According to Bloomberg, a Trump administration official in charge of export control programs acknowledged that a few H200 chips had already made it to Chinese consumers, indicating that the logistics and licensing framework is in place, even if volumes stay low. Investors have two different forward-looking signals to keep an eye on: a Vera Rubin production affirmation and an H200 China ramp that is still in its early phases. According to Vera Rubin, the semi-analysis controversy will probably continue until significant cloud clients or hyperscalers openly verify order receipts or deployment timelines, because Huang has not provided any precise volume or delivery timetable. Vera Rubin delivery windows have not been made public by Nvidia, and no customer order commitments have been made public. The trajectory of H200 shipments to China will be constantly monitored as a possible source of revenue. Before export limitations limited sales, China historically accounted for a sizable chunk of Nvidia's data center income. Even a partial return of that demand could result in a major improvement in performance in the upcoming quarters. Key questions for Nvidia's upcoming earnings report will be how quickly the company can expand H200 supply to Chinese buyers, and whether additional license constraints limit quantities. For the time being, Huang's straightforward words in Tokyo provide the strongest executive-level indication that Nvidia considers Vera Rubin's timeframe to be intact, creating a direct credibility test between the CEO and one of the most carefully watched independent research organizations in the semiconductor business. The performance of the S&P 500 cannot be disputed. As of July 13th, the benchmark index has generated a total return of 316% over the previous 10 years. You would now have $41,600 if you had invested $10,000 back then. This is a historically impressive performance that bolsters an unquestionably outstanding track record. The market players that benefited from this gain have no grievances. However, there is one fact about the S&P 500 index that I would want to share with all long-term investors. These days, the S&P 500 has a new structure. The economic environment has shifted. Notably, the information technology sector accounts for 39% of the total index. It is the largest sector by far. Second position goes to financials, which make about 11% of the index. The S&P 500 index had a different appearance 30 years ago. With a weight of 14%, the banking industry was the biggest. Technology firms were not as well known. Additionally, the degree of industry diversification was far higher. By purchasing an S&P 500 exchange-traded fund in 2026, investors are essentially expressing their optimism about the IT industry's long-term prospects with their money. Naturally, over the past 10 years, this has shown to be extremely successful. Even though Alphabet is the least successful of the three most valuable corporations in the world, its share price has increased by 872% since July 2016. Tech companies have profited from some very potent secular trends. Key examples include cloud computing, digital payments, streaming entertainment, e-commerce, and digital advertising. These have given businesses long-term growth tailwinds, enabling them to develop their clientele, raise sales, improve earnings, and fortify their positions in the market. Artificial intelligence, AI, is currently taking center stage as we look to the next 10 years and beyond. 4 of the top 10 holdings in the S&P 500 index are hyperscalers, giving them a significant financial stake in the current AI boom. Together, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, and Meta platforms want to invest around $700 billion in capital projects in fiscal 2026, which will result in an unparalleled infrastructure expansion. It makes sense to believe that the future performance of the S&P 500 index will be strongly correlated with the possible return on all of this investment. Investors may have to deal with a headwind in the market if the returns are unsatisfactory. As a base case, consulting firm McKinsey projects that semiconductor spending will reach almost $1.6 trillion by 2030. Compared to $775 billion in 2024, that would represent a 13% compound annual growth rate throughout that time. Unsurprisingly, a large portion of the anticipated rise is driven by the AI megatrend, especially in the markets for high-bandwidth memory, HBM, and cutting-edge CPUs. This implies that the majority of the benefits from that expansion will go to a select few businesses. Investors should keep a careful eye on the following 3 semiconductor stocks in light of this. Since Nvidia's GPUs supply a large portion of the parallel processing power that has driven the AI revolution, it is impossible to ignore the company. In late 2022, the stock fell to a cyclical low. However, when OpenAI's ChatGPT made a big impression, investors learned that it was powered by Nvidia's AI hardware. The worth of the chipmaker started to rise quickly and rather steadily. The stock has increased by around 1,600% since October 2022, despite a few obstacles along the way. Nvidia's stock probably has more to go despite those increases. Despite the emergence of competition, Nvidia has maintained its leading position in the AI accelerator market. Furthermore, if not for the company's almost $5 trillion market capitalization, its benefits may have been greater. Given that no business has yet to attain a $6 trillion market cap, investors may be wondering how quickly any more gains may be made. However, Nvidia's PE ratio of 31 is marginally lower than the average earnings multiple of 33 for the S&P 500. Since 2019, that is the lowest price. Additionally, in the first quarter of its fiscal 2027, which concluded on April 26th, it announced an annual sales gain of 85% and an annual profit growth of 211%. Given Nvidia's enormous scale, the company's financial growth is probably going to decelerate, but given how quickly earnings have increased, that is a very low price. Additionally, there are no official top limits for market caps, and Nvidia's stock is anticipated to experience significant upward pressure due to the low PE ratio. Nvidia should continue to outperform the market, but investors shouldn't anticipate another 1,600% increase.